And I've recently gone through, over the last year, an evolution and change to the point where people tell me, like, it's incredible. It's incredible the change you've gone through over the last year. I'm like, yeah, thanks. It really is, right? And they're like, no, it's incredible. You're not even the same person anymore. Like, what happened to you? And I'm like, oh, you're one of those. Okay. And so I've dedicated this channel to basically be an outlet for all things that I find fascinating, that can liberate us. Hey there, this is Ryan Nickel, and I've been wanting to do this. I don't know if you want to call it a vlog or a podcast or whatever it's going to be. I've been wanting to do this for probably about 2, maybe even 3 years now. So the Liberator Podcast is basically liberating us from these oppressive ideas that we have, whether they're from, the educational system, the financial system, the political system, religion, it's in there, even the familial system, like with families and things like that, friends and things, the confines like that we find ourselves in with our own thoughts. Like, we create our own prisons through our thoughts. And I've recently gone through, over the last year, an evolution and change to the point where people tell me, like, it's incredible. It's incredible the change you've gone through over the last year. I'm like, yeah, thanks. It really is, right? And they're like, no, it's incredible. You're not even the same person anymore. Like, what happened to you? And I'm like, oh, you're one of those. Okay. And so I've dedicated this channel to basically be an outlet for all things that I find fascinating, that can liberate us, that can make us more flexible, more free, whatever you want to call it. So full transparency about me is I grew up Mormon. Talk about like a restrictive religion, right? So I grew up Mormon, and I had these rules, if you will, these rules placed upon me. And I'm going to get into this. So I was recently kicked out of the Mormon church last year. So I'm going to have an episode in the future where I'm actually going to go through and walk you through that process of what it was like to be kicked out. And I'm divorced. I got 5 kids, and I also I got a new partner, and we've liberated ourselves from the confines of like traditional marriage. Like, we have an open relationship. We couple swap. We do soft swaps, basically. There's difference between soft swaps and full swaps. A full swap is like you're both switching. Like, I'm getting another guy's wife, this guy's getting mine, and we're doing full sexual activities, full swaps. Soft swap is basically anything but having penetrative sex. So, we've liberated ourselves in this regard. And some people might say, oh my God, that's not liberation at all. That's restrictive, or that's dehumanizing people, or whatever you want to call it. For me, this is what works. Financial freedom. Like, I have been in real estate for a number of years and have built up quite the portfolio. And in my divorce, I've opted to give, I say opted, we mutually agreed to just basically split everything. So I still have cash flowing properties. I'm still buying stuff in real estate. However, I find myself not as in the same luxury of being able to just sit back and let the money just flow in and not have to worry about anything. So I have savings, I have things like that, but also I realize that monthly I'm paying a huge nut to my kid's mom, to my former spouse. And so this is an opportunity for me to liberate myself, because I am currently oppressed in that regard, where I have lived in the past with the fruits of my labors and not having to worry about anything. I had the cash flow coming in. Now I'm splitting that cash flow, and I have my same expenses. And of course, she has her own expenses. And so now it's time for me to level up in that regard. And so that'll be part of my journey as well. I'm deep into the psychology of human mind. About 15, 20 years ago, I got trained as a neuro-linguistic program trainer. And so I have a lot of psychology around that. I used to be a therapist-ish, if you want to call it that. I used to do social work, counseling. Went on to get my master's. Didn't finish my master's, decided to go a different direction, so I never really got licensed in that way. Today, I'm actually a sex coach and a relationship coach, and not a sex therapist, because again, I'm not licensed in that regard, but I definitely do a lot of sexual healing with regards to sexual trauma and releasing. Like my whole belief around that, and I have another channel dedicated to this called Sexual Healing, where it's just basically that the if an orgasm can create life, that it can also heal life as well. So I use therapeutic orgasms in a therapeutic setting to help individuals release the pain and trauma that they have in their personal lives from past sexual experiences. So that's a whole another channel dedicated to that. So that's something else that I'm doing. And then of course I have a topless talk show. I got a podcast called Topless Talk, and we talk about sex and relationships in that. So this won't be dedicated to that. We may touch upon those things briefly, and there may be some crossover, but this podcast or this particular channel here on Liberator is not based on those. This is something completely different. This is basically, freeing of your mind. Free your mind of the financial difficulties that constrain you. Because here's a beautiful thing about this is whatever is your problem is also the way out. Like the obstacle is the way, if you look at Stoicism. And so I'm going to be sharing with you like a lot of the books that I read. I may come here and I'll just like open up the book and be like, hey, this is something that resonated with me, and just share with you. This is something here, and you can take it or leave it. Like, here's the cool thing about it. This is going to be a channel that is basically dedicated toward me and things that I find fascinating. And I'll bring on guests and have interviews and things like that. But for the most part, this is just my liberation from financial oppression, from spiritual oppression, from emotional oppression, and mental oppression. Because there's a lot of it. I mean, look at the world right now. The world is changing completely. What's happening in the political sphere, what's happening in the banking sphere. Like, this is, here I am in March 2023. And the world is completely awakening to basically the restrictions that have been there. And it's really fascinating because I came up with this idea as far as the Liberator Podcast about 2019, I think it's when it was. 2020? No, 2019. And so it's been about 4 years since I had this idea. And just recently, within the last 6 months, I have been on an ayahuasca journey. And wow, talk about unraveling the entire matrix and being able to see behind the curtain of this whole illusion that we call life, of what we're living. Like, all these rules. The main idea that I got from my trip, from my journey, from taking ayahuasca, and I've done it 4 times now, it's this basically, is society is nothing more than a structured set of rules that we willingly agree to. And if we agree to follow those rules, then we're part of that program. And if you know that's what's happening, and if you know that this is what you're getting into, then that's completely fine. But just realize that everything is based upon rules and your acceptance of those rules. Our society, the countries, the states, the counties, the cities, the schools, the religions, the families even, then their friendships. All of this is just a layer of rules that you agree to. And if you don't like the rules, guess what? You don't have to agree to them anymore. You can leave the family relationship. You can leave the religion. You can leave the political environment. You can go somewhere else if you don't like it. Like, there's people like, oh, get out of my state if you don't like it. But here's the reality of it. It's like, a lot of these rules are imposed upon you and you just have to agree to them. But they're not really your rules. You didn't like raise your hand one day. It's like, oh, I want to live by that. No, it's forced upon you. And that's the whole thing, is these rules are only in effect as long as the masses agree to them. Once the masses don't choose to agree to these rules anymore, those rules have no effect anymore. The power is given to the people to choose which rules they want to obey or abide by. And so that was a huge awakening for me. I saw literally in my mind's eye the whole world unraveling to its core, to what it was meant to be. And then all these rules and layers were layered on top of each other in order to create power and control. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, this was so liberating for me. I was like, I don't have to live that anymore. And then I hear people saying like, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm like, no, I don't. That's not my problem. That's your problem. If you think this is what I should be doing, well, that's your problem, because I don't believe that. And I'm just going my very way. And I'll give examples later on. I just wanted this to be an introduction of what I'm looking for, what I'm doing, and what it's going to do to benefit me. But stay tuned, because I think the very first episode that I'm actually going to do is going to be my excommunication, me getting booted and kicked out of the Mormon church. So stay tuned. This is Ryan Nickel, and I'm coming at you from the Liberator Podcast. And it won't stop. So we got to keep going. Don't stop. Get it. How does this thing even work? Oh my God.